Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Autodesk Virtual Academy, brought to you by your friends here at KETIV Technologies. So if you didn't join us last week we went over what's new in Autodesk's AutoCAD products for 2021. So definitely hope you enjoyed that. We had some people from the Autodesk AutoCAD team join us directly. It's going to be the exact same this week and next week for two other products, this week for Vault and next week for Inventor. And so that leads me to go ahead and introduce our good friend Irvin Hayes Jr. here from Autodesk, who happens to be one of the product managers. How's it going, Irvin?
It's going real well, Nigel. How about yourself?
Doing well. I'm doing well. And so everyone in the audience, Irvin is one of the product managers at Autodesk, who works on the product directly, gets feedback from you all as the users, and starts implementing those things into the products. This is the third year, I think, Irvin, you've done this with us?
Yes, it is.
Awesome, and I've really enjoyed these last two. These are my three favorite webinars all year, is the What's New webinars in whatever year that happens to be. I'm really excited to see what's going on. I, and the people in the beta programs for these programs as well, have seen the products evolve over the last year, and now we get to see exactly what's been in there. I know this product released a couple of weeks ago, so maybe some of you are already starting to use it. But for those of you who are maybe still on an older version or on the fence about whether or not you want to move to the next version of Inventor, hopefully this answers some of those, or Inventor and Vault, I guess, this answers some of those questions for you and let you move forward. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Irvin and take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Nigel. And thank you, everyone who's decided to take this time out and join us for this webinar and talk about Autodesk Vault 2021 and what's new. So sit tight and obviously ask any questions in the chat Q&A session that will be at the end of the whole session here, and we could possibly answer some questions along the way. But all right, so let's jump right into it. Autodesk Vault 2021, as in every release, we always try and install or upgrade and enhance features that you, the user, have requested over time. And again, as Nigel indicated earlier, a lot of this conversation comes from us having one-on-one conversations with you, Autodesk University, as well as our feedback community, also known as the beta program. So I will show you some of those things that we have installed or included in the 2021 upgrade, and then we will see where we go from there. With the 2021 upgrade or release, we have concentrated on three separate areas this release, and that includes pure productivity for our authors and our contributors. We'll discuss this in more details. The smart duplicate search reduction, and as well as the more efficiency for our administrators. With that, our Inventor team has gone through and done some updates to their Revit interoperability between Inventor and Revit. Vault, along the same lines, now has to incorporate features that will also work with this interoperability between Inventor and Revit. So what we're seeing here is what we do now is that we're going to allow a user who has installed, who is using a referenced Inventor model inside of, a referenced Revit model inside of Inventor, and also still store that Inventor model inside of Vault without having to pull the Revit model in. So it would be an external reference from Inventor model that references that Revit model. That Revit model can be on a network drive or in BIM docs, but those Revit models are not stored inside of Vault. So it'll continue to use that reference. If you open up Inventor again at a later time, Inventor will still have knowledge of that reference, but it's not pulled from Vault. The second option is to actually take the Inventor model and the Revit model and then put those both in Vault for storage and same revisioning and versioning purposes. This also then, as you're using Revit and Inventor separately, allows you to have Revit directly put things inside of Vault, as well as then the Inventor user who's pulling things or referencing other Revit models inside of Vault can then use that, place it inside of Inventor. It has the link and the relationship information that's necessary to keep the integrity of the Inventor model complete, and therefore Revit and Inventor working within Vault as the center can still work in interop along the way. So some of our supported scenarios here that we're talking about is Revit data that is stored and archived on a network drive or in BIM 360. The referenced links within Inventor are still there, and they keep the Inventor model in sync with that reference, but the Revit model then is not in Vault. And again, you can also have the option to store those Revit models inside of Vault if you choose to with different options. So a prerequisite, obviously, is then to either have that Revit model being stored on a network drive, and that network drive should be mapped so that all users know or have that same mapping, so that the next time the Inventor model is open, the Revit model, it knows where to find the Revit model. Or they have BIM 360 access, and so therefore, again, when the Inventor assembly is open and the reference links are there, it can still find the Revit model that's then stored in BIM 360. Moving forward, we are talking about data that's inside of Vault, and therefore, when you're using Inventor and you're creating different designs and users, your designers are continuing to move forward throughout the work process, they may have stored some files inside of Vault that is never used. A lot of these times, as an administrator, you may want to go in and clean these things up. So in previous releases, there was no easy way of finding this. So we had this user ask this on our Idea Station post, give me a way to find these orphan files, basically files that have no parents, that have never been used, so I can clean them up and get them out of my Vault. So again, the value here is I can save some storage, get these things out of the way, make sure that they're not being referenced or used inadvertently. So therefore, by that, now you can find these unreferenced files or these orphan files with a new property called has parent relationship. When you do an advanced search on this particular property, as we show here in the right image, it will show all of the files that have no parents. So an IPT that doesn't have an IDW or an IAM, and then you can clean up those files as necessary, or maybe they're in the wrong folder and they just need to be moved around. So therefore, you can easily find the unused files. And again, as an administrator, do what you need to do to clean them up. So it is a conditional state. Again, all you have to do is put in the advanced search, use the has parent relationship option or property, and then set it to true or false. Copy design is one of our most used feature and the most powerful feature, one of the most powerful features inside of Vault. We've always had users who come back and want more out of this particular feature. And this release and the previous release, we did a lot to enhance the copy design feature. This one was an Idea Station post that was asked, share and enforce action rules and settings from an administrative level. So in previous releases, we actually, all the action rule sets that were part of copy design was on each individual user's workstation. So the administrator had no control to enforce rule sets, to make sure that people had the correct rule sets defined, and which one should be the default or the one that's used commonly. So in Vault 2021, what we've done is we've taken the rule sets and made them server-side rule sets. So as an administrator, if you're coming from a previous release, you can actually import your current local rule sets and make them server-side rule sets. With them being server-side rule sets, any other user that starts to launch copy design will also get those rule sets. And therefore, it makes it easier for you to administer, deliver, and enforce as an administrator, so that make sure that everyone has the same rule sets and using copy design properly. Another request that was put on our Idea Station was the ability to view, preview, and share Navisworks files. So now the preview pane inside of Vault Client, you can actually select the Navisworks file, hit the preview, and it will show you the Navisworks attachment. And then it also gives you the ability to use the shared views capability that you can do with all of the other file, usually Inventor or DWG files that are stored inside of Vault. Remove friction for more productivity. So again, a lot of enhancements have been requested by you, the user. So therefore, we're going through and again trying to implement these as much as possible. One of them in the upper left-hand corner, don't present me with one problem at a time when there's 50 problems. This was around changing lifecycle states, for example, from WIP to release. A lot of the times you may have other files in there that cannot be changed, and we will give you error messages one by one. And so therefore in Vault 2021, we're actually giving you the collection of errors across all of the files instead of prompting you one by one, making it more efficient for you to go ahead and solve those problems. The next one is the job queue. The job queue, what we've done now is have the ability to give you more than a listing of 1,000. It is now configurable when you go into the job queue and you view it, you can actually select more files to view as default as an administrator. In the Vault add-in, there is a new filter called out-of-date filter. So if you have files that are in your workspace or in the model that you're currently open, currently have open, you are now able to see with this filter is files that you have an older version or the incorrect version on your local disk, and then you can actually get the latest version from the Vault. So I'm going to take a quick second. I see that there is a question that was on the Orphan Files, and Michael says, if a file has a parent in a previous version, but the current version does not, will it still show up in the Orphan search? So the answer to that is that you would have to turn on, it'll be by the tip by default, but in the advanced search, if you say show all versions, it will show you particularly which version doesn't have a child or a parent file in that case. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward here. Vault Office subscription. For those who have Vault Office or have used Vault Office in the past, Vault Office was only offered as a multi-user subscription or a multi-user model, meaning you needed to have the Flex LM service installed with a license manager, with a license in the license manager running. Coming up in May, on May 7th, Vault Office will now be offered as a single user sign-on capability. So if you're still using the Vault Office for 2020, what we're showing you at the bottom is what the login screen will look like. It will give you a single user and a multi-user option. If you're going to Vault 2021 or Vault Office 2021, you'll have a few different options. You can assign in for your Autodesk ID or a serial number, or you can still use the network licensing until that goes away. So let's move on. So you see here, we did cover a few things here. Let's jump right into the smart duplicate reduction. As you know, a lot of the times, again, as you're designing or your designers are moving forward in different projects, they may create some designs and they may create duplicates of designs. The cost of this is really high when you look at the downstream effects. Not only the prototyping, but the testing, production, how do you supply it and stock it, and things of that nature can be very costly for a business because designers are creating duplicate designs. So what we've done here, it was introduced as an update to 2020, but we've taken it and installed it obviously in the 2021 release for those who were not on 2020. But we've given you the ability to find your duplicates inside of Vault to reduce the time to market, to help you also reduce the cost of the designers possibly wasting a lot of time doing another geometry design that's something that already exists. So in the product, you'll have two different areas. The first area is the data analytics and insights. So Tom Engineer, as an example, he's an engineering manager. What he want to be viewing is the ability to see how many duplicates are in my workspace. We're giving a duplicate dashboard that gives Tom the ability to see that, what's my percentages of duplicates, and he can move forward with some other analytics there to see more information as well. The other person is Christina. As the mechanical engineer, she has to be looking at duplicate reduction as well and seeing how, while she's in the design mode, what can I do to make sure that I'm not using new geometry or creating new geometry when that geometry already exists in Vault. So she wants to make sure her designs are using existing things and not creating duplicates. I think I'm going backwards, I'm sorry. So some of the things you need to know with a duplicate search, duplicate ratio, duplicate parts over the total parts of files that are in the specified folder. And as well as, there are certain cases where we may not be able to index a particular file or part because of corruption. So as an administrator, you turn this particular feature on, it will go through and it will index using the job processor all of the current files that you have in place. It will do this and try and be optimized. So if it's your first time turning it on, a recommendation would be to have a dedicated job processor sitting along the side so it can go through and just do the indexing to find the duplicates. And again, then it, we'll go through and let you know which ones could not be indexed as well. So what are duplicates inside of the system and its definition? Solid bodies in Inventor part files have the exact same geometry. So we're showing you this here as an example. Material density and color, while these two are different as far as color is concerned, the material is concerned, but they're still considered the same. They're considered a duplicate in this example. Different orientations does not qualify as a different part. If the geometry in itself is the same, it will be considered a duplicate, as well as the mirror. So any other non-geometry parameters on the solid body doesn't impact the duplication, is what we're basically trying to tell you here. So the parameters used to identify duplicates is the surface area, the body volume, and the principal movements of inertia. We will look to try and improve it a little bit further, downstream, as more and more users give us feedback, and we're finding other things that we should or should not be considering duplicates. So again, this was delivered in 2020 in an update, but it's still moving forward in the 2021 release. And obviously your opinions and your views on this is very invaluable to us. So if you have some thoughts on this, please participate in our idea stations and post new ideas on what you might want to consider duplicate or not duplicate, or how can we enhance the product further. So let's jump into efficiency for administrators. So over time, we've looked at administrative level functions, and we looked at areas and have gotten feedback on areas that needs to be improved for our administrators. So we've added quite a few different things here, which we're going to talk about, what you see in the list here. And so let's talk about them. This shows you the time frame of what we've done in the past. We've added the ability to combine the lifecycle and object state security. That gives you a little bit more flexibility when you're doing lifecycle state changes and definitions. We've completed or added new roles, so you can delegate your administrative functions to other users, so everyone is not always pinging the full administrator to do certain things. As well as then we've added the ability to create your own custom roles. So you have a list of permissions that you have inside of Vault. As an administrator, you want to create your own custom roles and assign specific permissions to assign them to users. So again, so that they can do the particular function allowed to them by the permission. This distributes that administrative level control or administration from the actual administrator down to users who should be able to do it every day, saving you a lot of time and possibly headaches as an administrator to try and keep Vault moving forward for the users in these cases. But what we've done today, we've added some more permissions and we've added a new download permission, which we'll talk about next. So security is a very important part today, and what we've heard in the past is that users needed more granularity when it comes to permissions and folders and what people can see. In the previous releases, what you're seeing here in this table is that we have the ability to read, but that ability to read or permission to read also gave the user the ability to download the files. We've heard from a lot of people that, well, we want them to see some of the metadata, but we don't necessarily want the users to download these files. whether it be in a specific state or whether they should just not do it regardless of what state it is. So what we've done is giving you more granularity as the administrator to solve this problem. So now in Vault 2021, we've added a download permission. So as you see is in this illustration, our user shop floor worker, while he has access to folder A from a read perspective, in this particular, let's say, state of folder A, he cannot download anything from folder A. So as an administrator now, I can control this more granular as necessary for any of my users and or groups that are inside of the Vault, and making sure that the right people are able to download the right files at the right time inside the process. So here's some things to know about this here. Here's what's going to require the download permission. Property reads and searching and reports and sending a link, those only need the read permission. All of the rest of these require the read and download permission. So open, view and window, a GIT, creating a PDF or a DWF, doing shared views, the job processor needs to obviously download files to manipulate whatever it needs to do. So all of those tasks need to download permission, the others do not. So I see a couple of questions real quick. Let's answer that one real quick. Dennis, not sure if I agree finding duplicates that have different materials should be used. Okay, thank you for the feedback. I would say again, we're looking for more ways to improve that feature. Please post what your ideas are on our idea station board, and we'd be happy to consider that in a future enhancement, because we're always looking for ways to improve the experience and the workflow for all of our users. Another one here. Oh, okay, that was just a quick chat. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward. Tracking download and audit logs. This is one of the hidden features that has been in the product for a very long time, but we made it easier for the administrator now to turn it on. So in the advanced settings tab now inside of the ADMS console, you'll see an audit log configuration section. You can check the box that says, I want to log whoever downloads a file. I also want to log who deletes a file. So that's in that #1 section. Before, in previous releases, you had to know how to edit or find first the config file where this was stored, how to edit it properly so you didn't corrupt the config file, and then turn it on. But now we've made it easier for you as the administrator to turn it on. The next thing is we've added an audit log. So this information previously was stored in the server logs, what's also known as the vlogs on the server. It was mixed in with a bunch of other stuff, and as an administrator, it made it harder for you to find who did what based on these two options. So now what we've created is a new log file called the audit log. It can be controlled just like all the rest of the logs as far as how many you keep and when they get recycled. So you just have to turn that on just like all the rest of them. And then you can set the value of how many you want to keep over time. And then they obviously go first in, first out. So you'll see that new audit log section again in ADMS console. As we do more type of auditing in the future, those records or records will be saved in this audit log as well. Again, making it easier for you to find the things that you need to find. Some usability enhancements. As the administrator, you're going through and you're trying to configure security on particular dialogues. Some usernames are very long, or for it's very difficult to see everything that you need to see within the dialogue. So we did add the ability in 2021, so where you can expand these dialogues so they're more readable for what you need to do, as well as not only can expand wide, but it can expand vertically as well. Some security model enhancements here as well. One that's been there for a long time is at 116 volts over time, was the ability to hide these disabled users. So as you're going through and you're having users come and go through your company, you have to disable those users. But when you're trying to manage security on objects or in lifecycle definitions, these security or these users always show up, but they're disabled and you have no idea that you're adding users that are disabled or no longer at your company. So now when you're managing the users, you have an ability to say, check the box that says show enabled users only. So all of the disabled users are now hidden and out of the way. Then in each of the other dialogues where you're adding members because you're changing securities or you're adding members to a group, etc., then in that dialogue, you can check the box that says show enabled users in groups only. And now you know that only the users that show up are the users that enabled. On the right side of that dialog where you see current members, if you have members in there that are still disabled, they will show up in that list. So we're not hiding them from the right side, but we will prevent you from adding disabled members into the dialog or to the right side of the dialog. Another option that was asked for was to tell me when I'm logged in as an administrator. So we have designers or CAD managers who have two logins into Vault. One is their standard or everyday working login, doesn't have administrative privileges, but then they have another login that has administrative level privileges. But what they keep telling us was, I have no idea which one I'm logged into because I'm just logging in, I'm going to work immediately. I need some type of indication to tell me I'm actually logged in as the administrator so I can be careful with what I'm doing. So what we've done in 2021 is we've made a better indication at the very bottom of the screen. The status bar will change colors to let you know you're logged in as an administrator. Now this is that you have to be part of the administrators group. I know we don't have a lot of granularity here, but right now, if the person is part of the administrators group, that color will change. The administrator can also change this color by going into the global settings and selecting the different color. Now keep in mind, for those who have problems seeing certain colors, the icon next to the user in the lower right-hand corner of the dialog where it has the username will also change. Therefore, it'd be one icon for a standard user, a different icon for an administrative user login. So we've given you now the indication to understand, oops, I'm logged in as the wrong user. I don't want to be the administrator. I want to be a regular user so I can do other regular workflows, and you can get out of that account and log into the correct account. Minimizing downtime for backups. So as your environment grows, the file store grows, the databases grow, and then your backup time also increases. So what we've done here, excuse me, what we've done here is that we try to improve the backup time as well as the restore time. And during the backup, we have an option of validating the file store and making sure everything is working appropriately. And that file store validation is also optimized now, so it looks at the file store a lot faster than what it has done in the past. There's an option also in here so that you can minimize the amount of time that, or reduce the amount of files in your file store by doing the purge command. So what we've done in the lifecycle control is that when you change what the settings are under the control tab of how many versions to keep, normally or in previous releases, what would happen is you make a change to that setting and it'll only apply to new files or new versions in the vault after that setting was changed. Your historical versions would never change. So now there's a new option at the bottom of that control tab, and it's called include existing file versions. So if you make a setting change, let's say for instance, you wanted to keep the first and last, and you know, you had it at none before, you can select the first and last, check this box, hit apply or okay. We would go back and reset that control bit on the historical versions that are in Vault. Now when I run the purge command, I can get rid of those versions that I no longer need, decreasing the amount of time or decreasing the amount of files in the file store, which then inherently decreases the amount of time for the full Vault backup. So during the restore process, what you're seeing in the lower right-hand corner is what's called a quick file store validation. So again, we've already optimized the file store validation during the restore itself. So we've sped that process up quite a bit because as you are restoring in the past, let's say, for instance, it was taking a couple hours. Well, we've now decreased it because of the optimization, and it should take you obviously less than a couple hours to do so. This quick file store validation, what it does is if you check this box during the restore, it will check to verify that the file exists in the file store. However, it is not checking the integrity of the file itself. So you do have this option to check it, but keep in mind, it's not telling you whether the file is corrupt, but all it's telling you is that the file exists. So without it checked, we're actually checking the checksum of the file, so therefore we know what we recorded in the database as far as the checksum is concerned is the same checksum that that file is. So we have better reliability that that file is okay during the restore process. This quick file store validation is also an option when you do an attach, because the same thing happens. You attach to the database, we look at the file store, and we validate that what's in that Vault database, there is a file existing for that particular record. This is a large one for a lot of our customers who have requirements or policies in their company about what the names of your SQL Server instances has to be. So now in Vault 2021, surprised that this image actually shows the wrong image, but we'll have to fix that later. But in this installer, what we're doing is we're giving you the option to see that or select and change the instance name of SQL during the install process. We will default to Autodesk Vault instance. Everybody knows that who is familiar with Vault already. But if you decide that you want to use a compliancy name that's required by your company, you can input a new name in there that is compliant with your company policies, and therefore we would install with that particular new name. Or we will install in an existing instance with that name. So you have now the ability to have some flexibility with the SQL requirements. Another upside to this as well that was not there before is if you have not only a production environment, but you also have a testing environment. Previously, because we only required, or we required that the Vault, the SQL instance name be Autodesk Vault, you had to use 2 separate machines to install SQL on. But now that you have flexibility here, you can have a production environment SQL instance and a testing environment SQL instance on the same server because the instance names can be different. So it saves you a little bit of maintenance for your SQL administrator or your IT administrator in this case. So basically what we're showing you here is we've done a lot of things to improve our administrators' workflows as well as some collaboration. We've done this by adding the audit logs, putting in new granular permissions for security, meaning that you have now the download permission, giving you a lot more flexibility in certain areas such as the SQL instance name, as well as the file store validation, and as well as purging more things. So with that, that's just a quick overview of the 3 areas that we have covered in the Vault 2021 release. Again, we will continue to improve certain areas, all areas that we see as necessary, as well as start adding features based on your feedback. Your feedback is very important to us, so we want to make sure that you are included in a lot of our decisions. So what we are asking everyone is make sure you join our feedback community. It's very important, and as a matter of fact, we're doing a lot of webinars, and we need a lot of your input when it comes to these decisions that we're making in future features. More things are coming in the duplicate search, so you have some comments or some suggestions that we should be looking at. Join our feedback community. We have new products, not products, but new features that are coming out in the product, and before we release it, we want your input. Are we getting the right things into that new feature? Are we solving the right problems? Are there things that we can add to that new feature before it's released that's going to make it more valuable to you, the user, upon first release? It's very important to jump in and have those conversations. Give you a header. Give you a forewarning. We're having a webinar next week, but only the people who are in our feedback community will actually know about it. So make sure you join those things. Make sure you join the feedback community. Make sure you post some ideas on features that are already out there. How can we improve and enhance it? We do look at it regularly. And I think some people have the stigmatism that we don't. But we look at it very regularly, and we take them very seriously, and we implement them as soon as we can on a regular basis. So with that, I think we can open it up to more questions if needed. I only saw the 2.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, go ahead and type them in now. It looks like we're slowly getting a couple in, both on the chat side and the question side, Irvin, if you want to take a look.
Yep, so I'm looking at the chat. So I was told that these are great enhancements. Thank you very much to copy design permissions, duplicate search, and audit logs. So I'm glad everybody's going to take a look at that. Milton asks, does duplicate search just show up as more options on the search API, or is there a different way to access it via the API? That's a very good question, Milton. I believe there are certain APIs in there that's available for more options possibly, but I'm not sure what they all are. So you can probably ask that in our forum, and I'm sure we can get some of our developers to answer that question. But we only had 2 questions in the Q&A, which I did answer live as well. So I don't.
Looks like you got to those. I'm gonna check one more space. I know we're double streaming right now, so let me just check the other side and see if I can find anything for you here as well, Irvin. Yeah, so a question for the upgrade path. Are we still able to upgrade from 2 versions back? So can you go from, I guess, 19 to 21?
That is correct. Yes, we will still always have that ability. We have a lot of our customers who upgrade every other release, so we have to maintain that and make it easier for people to upgrade. So yes, 2 versions back is the farthest back that we go.
Cool. Sounds good.
Any enhancements to change orders is another question I just saw pop up. As of right now, we have not made any enhancements to change orders. We are looking at enhancements to the change order area in the future, though. But 2021 does not have any enhancements in that area.
And then there's a question about Fusion Lifecycle and Vault, about the connector. So with the connector for Fusion Lifecycle and Vault, we're going to be doing a webinar kind of highlighting where Fusion Lifecycle fits into a person's workflow, how you can use both together, and you should use both together to be able to manage all of your data and make sure the right people at your organization have the right information. So look out for that in a couple of weeks. We're going to have Brian Shannon on with us to go over some stuff in data management as well as on the PLM, the lifecycle management side of things too. So definitely stay on the lookout for that. I think that webinar is in 3 weeks, so definitely be tuned.
Another one popped up in the Zoom webinar, email notifications to non-change order events. That has not changed either. We do not have any other email notifications out of the box for other non-change order events. However, that is one that you want to jump into our feedback community, and when we start talking about what those might be, we want you to chime in on that, Brian. So.
Yep, yeah, absolutely, Brian. Take a look there. Additionally, too, depending on what you're trying to do, we've already done it for some of our customers in regards to certain email notifications using some of the big brain people at the office here at KETIV. They're able to do that kind of stuff. So if there's anything specific that you want that might be beyond the existing out-of-the-box Vault workflow, or just something that Vault doesn't do, period, let us know, and we can see if if we can find a workaround for that workflow. I know I've talked a lot to Irvin in the past about utilizing functionality for things maybe a little bit different than what it was intended for, or just custom writing some stuff. We've done a lot of that in the past too. So. And then
another quick question popped up.
Yeah, by restricting downloads, will the user still be able to use the get function?
Well, the get function is a download. So if you don't have the download permission, they can't do a get.
And will it, Irvin, like, what does the dialogue look like for that? Is get and checkout, are those two like grayed out, or are they just not in the right click menu?
Actually, they're not grayed out. The user will get an error if they try and do a get, and they'll get it afterwards. It won't do it interactively on the user selecting the file or something like that. So it won't do it until they get it.
Definitely keep note of that for any support cases that come up in the future. I know that's going to happen. So
yes, absolutely, yeah. Unfortunately, that's one of those things that if we did it on analyzing on the selection of the file, it would take some performance hits. So we try not to do that where possible. So we wait until you actually try to perform the action before we tell you, I'm sorry, you can't, because you don't have the proper permissions to do that.
Cannot perform this task due to Vault restrictions. That's
Exactly.
what it said.
Yes, that's exactly the error message.
Very cool. All right, I'll let everyone get another 30 seconds or so to ask any more questions that you do have. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the next couple of AVAs. So like I said, this is just the second part of a 3-part AVA series we do every year, going over AutoCAD, Inventor, and Vault. We've already done AutoCAD last week. This week, we're doing Vault. So next week, we're going to be doing Inventor. We're going to have some people who I guess are also on Irvin's team technically, because the Inventor team and the Vault teams work very closely with one another. So we're going to have a number of people, including Garen, Kyle, Chris, some of these people that you may know if you've been to some of our webinars in the past, join us to go over some of the new features in Inventor, some of which kind of go hand in hand with what Irvin was talking about, specifically the Revit functionality and the interoperability between those two products. If they're able to interop between those two products, Irvin and his team have to make sure those things get stored. So I guess there's a little bit of a nugget for next week to see what they've got included in their software.
Absolutely.
After that, we're going to be going over some advanced manufacturing with Alex Alvarez. I believe that's in FeatureCam. And then we're looking into doing, like I said, some webinars related to Fusion Lifecycle. So definitely stay tuned for those. But without further ado, let me go see if there's any last minute questions before we let everybody go today. Ooh, I think that's just about everything that we've got for questions today. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Irvin, again, a special thanks to you for doing this, I guess, for the 3rd year in a row. We definitely got to link up one of these days and do these things live at the same place. That'd be really cool.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you very much for having us. And good luck with the future webinars.
Absolutely. Thanks again. So for everyone, we'll see you again next week, same time, same place. If you need to see this again in the future, want to be able to reference it, this is being recorded and it's going to get uploaded to our YouTube channel probably sometime this afternoon or tomorrow. So definitely stay tuned for that. Again, thanks, and we'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.